Good morning. Good morning, dear students. Today we will discuss about problem number 3, program 3. So again, program number 3 also has part B and part A. How is your DA subject is going on? How much you have covered? Is it first module over? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Second module started?
Yes, ma'am, started.
Okay. Okay. Before moving into that, we will just go look into the questions. So read question number A. Write a Java program to read two integers A and B. Compute A by B and print when B is not a zero. So the answer you have to print if A by B you have to calculate. If B is not a zero value you have to answer you have to print the value what is A by B. Raise an exception when B is equal to zero. So it means that if B is equal to 0, you have to, after doing the operation, A by B, so for example, A is 5 and B is 0, so A by B will be throwing an exception. So that is first question is related to the exception handling. In detail, you will study in the OOC class. For as of now, one single strategy we will discuss. There are multiple ways we can handle exception. I will tell what is exception when I am going for the discussion. That is first question. And second one is write a Java program that implement a multi-thread application that has three threads. So then the second question is all about multi-threading concept. So what is it doing? So you can see the first thread generate a random integer for every 1 second. So three threads are involved in that. So what is the first thread is doing? It is just generating a random integer value in every 1 millisecond, 1 second. And then the second thread will be computing the square of the number and printing. So whatever be the random number generated by the first thread, that its square value will be computed by the second thread and its cube value will be computed by the third thread and it will be printing the values. So that is the next question it is asking you to implement. Okay. So what is the first question? It's about the exception handling. So whenever a unfavorable situation is happening, whenever an unfavorable situation is happening, how the code will be managing, that is discussing in the exception handling section. And the second one is for the multi-threading implementation. Okay. Did you discuss these things in the OOC class? Whether ma'am has discussed it in the OOC class? Hello? No. Okay. So we will just start with the things. So lab program number 3, we will be discussing two questions. One is for the exception handling part and another one is for the multi-threading. So what is meant by an exception? So that is the first question. What is meant by an exception? So exception, when you all are familiar with the term error, syntax error, or you are seeing like a certain logical error. So those things you are already familiar, which was not giving the correct output for your problem. So the problem is there. You have coded it when you are compiling it. That moment itself, it was not following a certain syntax. So it was showing you an error. So that is called as compile time errors. That is called as compile time errors. Okay. So it is called as errors. But that before running the code itself, you can able to find out that is error. But when you have checked the code, it is syntactically correct and logically correct. So we are expecting that it will give you the correct output. But based on the input, some unavoidable situation are happening in the code. Some troubles it was making. We couldn't able to find out before based on what value it is getting for the variable. Based on that, some problems are generating while running the code. It is mainly called as exception. So syntactically code is correct, but when you are trying to execute the code, some unfavorable situations are happening, and that are called as exceptions. Okay. So we will be discussing about day-to-day life. So a girl is watching a video on the YouTube on a computer. So all on a sudden, exception is maybe the internet connectivity gone or battery backup gone or some or other issue was happening so that the work what she was doing actually it should happen without any interrupt. But all on a sudden, that was an unexpected event which was happened, and because of that the normal process was interrupted. So that is an exception, that is an example of an exception. Similarly, another example is telling like a car was driving the car all on a side the tire got punctured. So what will be the until it is repairing, so what will be the thing? So that is an unexpected event which was happened. Actually, the car should go smoothly without any problems. But all on a sudden, some unexpected, the car tires were there, the driver were there, fuel were there, all those things were there, and machine was okay. But that was the unexpected event. So similarly, in the code also, we are expecting that all the things will work fine because the compile time it was not showing any error. But when it actually executing, some unavoidable problems were coming that we need to manage. Okay, so that is about the exception. So we will be discussing about exceptions in this session. So actually speaking in Java, for handling, now it is coming, that was the normal behavior of the exception I was showing. Now we will see how in code it will be coming. So this is one example which was showing an exam. Is it syntactically correct? One package name has given, the class name has given, the class name has given, and then the main has written system.out.println 1 2, and then int a is equal to 1 by 0. So when we are doing this arithmetical operation 1 by 0, it was throwing an infinite value. That means the exception is correct, but the syntax is correct because 1 is a number, the one number will be divided by another number. Syntax is correct, like A by B will be the syntax. So that syntax is following, so the compiler won't give you an error. But when we are running the code, this 1 by 0, we will be getting the value as infinity, and which will be throwing an exception. So what will happen if this is the code, system 1 will be printing, 2 will be printing. After that, this unavoidable situation was happened so that the entire program will stop. So that means the program 3 and 4 won't print, and the entire program will be stopping because of this exception. We'll tell about the one more exception. For example, I am having an integer array which was having 5 elements. 5, 8, 9. So these are the elements I am having. All on a sudden, I am accessing a of 0. It was not giving me any error. When I am trying to access a of 6, it will give you an error. It will give you an error. But when you are checking in the syntax during error calculation, a, then the square bracket and some integer value and the closing bracket. So it won't give you an error, but when we are substituting this value as 6, that particular moment it will give you an error telling that it is the array indices will be from 0 to 4 and 6 is not an index of the current array what you have defined. Okay. So that type of error is called or exception is called as array index out of bound. Index out of bound. There are multiple type of exceptions. So these actually speaking, this array index out of bound exception and this is called as the while doing an arithmetic operation, we were getting an exception. It is called as arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. Okay, so these are the other exceptions we are having. Other than that, actually they all the exceptions will be having, we are having an exception class in Java. So based on that, we will be having multiple throwable exceptions will be there, and again it's a subclasses will be there, runtime exceptions will be there. So that all details I am not discussing, it's a part of your theory. So what is required for our coding, that part mainly I am discussing, but as of now you don't have any idea about exception. That's why I'm trying to give an idea at least. So array index out of bound exception, I think you will be familiar with this. Even if I am trying to access a of -1, that is also not there. So it will also give the exception like array index out of bound exception. And arithmetic exception, as I mentioned, by when I am trying to divide a number by 0, it will be throwing an exception. So when I am executing this code, what will be the output I will be getting? You see, I told already, like I will be getting 1, 2 without any interruption. And the third statement was 1 by 0. So that was showing an exception. Exception in thread main. So in the main function, you have given an exception. So what is the type of the exception? It was given like arithmetic exception. You can see here that by default this exception will throw in this particular case. So arithmetic exception by 0 at exception handling, exception divide by 0. So that is the name of the exception, divide by 0, and it is a type of arithmetic exception. In main, exception divide by 0 in Java line number 9. So it was mentioning like in the line number 9, you can see line number 8 was making the exception. So from 9 onwards, it won't execute. In this particular statement, you are making an exception of arithmetic exception and its type is divide by 0. So that will be the statement by default you will be getting when you are trying to execute this code. And one thing you can make sure that at that point onwards, the complete code will be stopping its execution. That means the further statements won't execute. So that is the issue related to the exception handling. So now you tell, we have to manage this. How can we manage this particular problem? So when we were compiling the code, it was not showing me any error. When we are checking the logic, it was not showing any error. But when we try to execute, because of certain things, some or other issues will be coming. How can I manage that? So for that, mainly in Java, we will be having certain structures and it is called as exception handling mechanism. One is called as try catch, Then another one is called as throw, and the last one is called as throws. Okay, so these three structures or these three syntax will make sure that even if some exception occurs, that exception will be inform the user. At the same time, the remaining part of the code should also execute. So what is the intention of this exception handling mechanism? If I am applying an exception handling mechanism on statement number 8, what I can guarantee? I will inform the user that at statement number 8, an exception has occurred. At the same time, the statement number 9 and 10 will also execute. That is the thing the exception handling mechanism can do. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 statement will print if I am applying an exception handling mechanism on statement number 8. Are you clear? Are you getting me? Mm, okay, so that's all about the exception handling mechanism. As I mentioned you, three different strategies were there. So the first strategy is about try catch. So what we will be doing over here, whatever statement we are suspecting that it may produce an exception. So in if for some certain value of the input may it even if it makes an exception, what we can do, such type of statement you can put in the try block. So the statements which you expect that it may uh, throw an exception. So such type of statements you can write in the try block. It is called as try block. So this curly bracket as it is, you can just directly write in Java. It is called as block. So this is called as try block. In the try block, we will be writing the statement which may throw an exception. And if the statement which was present in the try block is providing an exception, or if it is generating an exception, that exception will throw come into the catch block. So what will happen? The statements which was making the exception will throw an exception object into the catch block. So what will happen in try block? The statement which will generate an exception, if it generate an exception, then the object of that exception will come to the catch block, and inside the catch block you can just inform the user that this particular object was find out in this particular statement out.println. So it can inform the user. It can inform the user about the exception. Inform the user about the exception. So further statements will execute also without any problem. And throw and throws we are not discussing in today's session, that I am leaving for your OOC class. Okay. So, but you can just remember that these are the three structures we will be using for handling the exception 2 and 3. Okay. So, but what is try catch you need to remember, because that is the one we are trying to implement over here. So the statement which may generate an exception will be putting in the try block. If exception happen, only the catch block will execute. Otherwise, the catch block won't execute. If any exception was generated from the try block, its object will be throwing to the catch block. And based on that will be accepting over here. You can see exception E. E is the object which will be accepting from the point where the error exception was occurred. So the catch block will be accepting that exception, and then it will be printing and informing the user that that particular exception has occurred. Okay. So look into the code. So look into the code. You can see how we have solved that particular issue. The issue was in statement number 8. This was the statement which was generating an exception So what we did, we have written the statement inside a try block. So this is the try was starting try block, and this is the closing part of the try block. You can see. So the try block will be starting and closing over here. And then the catch block will be starting. So as this is generating an arithmetic exception, you can specifically you can write it as an arithmetic exception object will be getting from this, or you can even write like an exception. So that will be the base class of the arithmetic exception. So here, as you already familiar that only one exception will be coming, that is of type arithmetic exception. So you can just write it as an arithmetic exception E. And then system.out.println, the number cannot be divided by 0. This is the message which was given to the user, indicating like the value which was performed the division was done by a 0. That's why this problem has come. So after that, the two statements we were having, so those two statements will also be executed. So what will be the output of this program? What will be the output of this, which all are the statements will print? Which all are the statements will print? Sachin SV? Okay. Sachin SV. Which all are the statements will print?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me which all are the statements will print?
Don't know, ma'am.
Don't know. Okay, Sadish. Sadish.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, Sadish, which all are the statements will print? What will be the output of this program?
After divide the system that printing
You
system
tell
they,
from here, from main the program will be started executing. So which statement will print first? Shipra? Shipra. Tell me what is the problem? Tell me, Shipra, which all are the statements will print? What will be the output of the program? The output of the program will be, see, the statement number 1 will be executing. So 1 will be there in the output. And then the second statement 2 will be there in the output. And then it will come in the try block, and it will be checking the system.out.println. So before divide will be there. And then the exception is happened over here, so that the exception object will throw to the catch block, so that then next onwards the catch block will be executing, so that this particular statement won't execute. So what will happen? The directly it will be coming over here. Then this particular statement will be executing. A number cannot be divided by 0. So that particular statement will be executing. One person has responded in the chat box. Very good, Sachin. Then the statement which is after the try block, whether this particular statement will execute or not. Then anyway, we know that after the catch block, the statement number 3 and 4 will also execute. Statement number 3 and 4 will also execute. Okay. So when we will be looking into the output, you can see the output will be 1, 2 before divide. The number cannot be divided by 0, 3 and 4. So these are the output statements we will be getting. So what does it mean? The statements which was present in this, that was executed, and then coming into the try block, this was the complete try block. There the before divide was executed, then the exception happened. Whenever an exception happened, immediately the control will go to the catch block. So the remaining statements in the try block is not executing, but the catch block will be completely executing. So that was just a statement. So that particular statement has printed. Once it is out of the catch block, so this is the catch block starting and this is the closing part. So once the catch block over, then immediately the statement after the catch block will be executing. That means 3 and 4 will be executing. Very good. Very good, Sachin. So that is all about the program. So this is the same question. It was asking you to do it. Instead of giving 1 minus 1 by 0, it is asking you to read two integers. So you can just read two integers by using a scanner class and an extend function. Read two integers a and b. Do the operation a by b. And if b is equal to 0, automatically it will be throwing an exception. So those statements you can write inside a try block. And inside the catch block, the same statement you can print. So this is about the first program. So we'll move into the execution part. Okay, let it open. So any doubt if you are having, you can ask me. Any doubt if you are having, you can ask me now related to exception handling. Related to exception handling, if you are having any doubt, you can ask me now. Are you clear? So if some unfavorable situation are happening, what we can do is you can put the entire statement inside a try block. So the try block will be starting over here. Try and catch are the keywords. So inside that you can write the code. For example, if you are having an array access operation, I less than or equal to 20, I plus plus. If you are expecting that whether the array is having that many elements or not, if you are not sure, you can just, for example, print a of I. So this was the value I am doing, but I don't know whether these 20 values are present in array A. So if I am doing this operation, if some exceptions are happening, immediately that exception from this print statement will come directly to the catch block. Here, whatever be the exception type, you can specifically mention, or directly exception itself you can write, then the catch statement will come. So here you can write the system.out.println, whatever be the statement you want. Okay. So this is the symbol syntax. So whenever you are having a try statement, so that whichever the statement you are feeling that it may generate an exception, but because of the value it was assigning. So that type of statements you can put inside the try block. So if it generate an exception, it will be going directly to the catch block. Then the statement after the catch block will execute, and the statement up to the exception in the try block will also execute. That's why before divide was executed. But when an exception has occurred, that moment onwards, the statement after the try block is not executed. Any doubts? So this is the code. Okay, this is the exception class. So this is the exception class. You can see here the package P1. So there you can, we have imported the scanner class. So even instead of scanner class star I have included, it means that all the classes which was present inside the utility package will be imported. Scanner is one of the class. So similarly, we have seen in the last class one more class which was present in the utility package like a string tokenizer. In the same way, multiple classes are present in the utility package. So if you are putting star, it indicates that all the classes which was present in the utility package will be importing. Then the class exception. So this is the class I am having. Inside that the main program will be there. And you can see the very simple program int a comma b, and the result are the three values I want. So the values a and b will be reading from the user using the scanner class object. Then you can see inside the try block, I am doing the division operation. Result will be calculating. If it is a normal value of b, for example, 5 by 2 I am doing, then directly I should get the output. So the result will be printing inside the try block. If it was not a b value is not any integer value, and if it is a zero value, then it should give you and give me an exception. So how I will be handling in that particular case only, this code won't execute. All other cases it will execute normally without any issue. So if b value is 0, automatically an exception will be throwing from here and it will come to the catch block. So this statement will generate an exception if b value is 0. So it will be directly coming into the arithmetic exception, and the exception code division by 0, that message will be coming. And the object what I have received from the exception, that is E object, that will also be printing. That's all about this particular program. Okay, so that's all about the program. You can see here. Any doubt related to this program? If you are having, you can ask me. So I will just run this. So input two integers is asking. So I have to give two values. So I'm giving 10 and 5. So that is a normal scenario. So two numbers I am just dividing. I will be getting the result as 2. the program has stopped. So again, if I am executing it one more time, what will happen? So enter two integers is asking. I am giving 10, and in this case b value I am giving as 0. So exception is will be generating. So what will happen? The exception caught division by 0 error. So java dot arithmetic exception by 0. So that was the exception caught division by 0. That is the statement I have written from here. The exception caught division by 0 is the statement, and e-object will be providing me the error, like what is the error it was showing. You can see here, exception caught division by 0, the same statement has printed, and after that e-object I was printed. So e was showing me like what type of object it is, arithmetic exception division by 0. So in the arithmetic exception is the class, it was also having multiple type of exceptions. In that, one exception is division by 0. So it is just telling you like the exception generated is of arithmetic exception type, and the exactly which one it is division by 0. That's all about the first program. Okay, now we will move into the next question. If you are not having any doubt, we are moving into the next one. Can I move to the next one? Okay. So the next one is about multi-threading. It is little complicated concept, so please listen. So what is the use of threading? So normally we will be having multiple things in the system itself will be doing. So now itself one Eclipse I am opening and running in the system, and one presentation I am projecting, and it is connected with some other input interface for writing the things. So those so many things will be associated, and all things parallelly it is happening. So, for example, this is another example. You will be having a common database there, the data will be storing, and multiple users will be connecting through this database through a server, and everyone is requesting for some or other changes. So, what is the thing with respect to this particular user? He was not aware of the other presence of the other users. So, what he wants his things to be done as early as possible. So what he want minimum response time. So within a minimum time he has to get the result from the database. So this is the time, this is the way every process will be managing. So what we can do is every process we can convert it into different subcategories, or we can just divide it into multiple threads. For example, if the processor, the single processor system I am having currently, I am using it. It was using an peer presentation. It is having a Google Meet. It is having another thing that is like the Eclipse is running. So all together, many things are working on at the same time itself. The Google Meet as well as the presentation together will be running. So the processor should give preference to both of them in such a way that you should not get a feeling like only one thing is currently working. So how it will be doing is it will be doing that particular thing in parallelly. So at the same time the Google Meet will also be working, and parallelly the presentation part also it is managing. So how that will be doing? It is because of the threads. Right. So what is it doing? So parallelly, this request will be coming into the processor, and processor will be giving little time for the first process, that is my Google Meet. Then the next 1 second will be giving for the presentation. Again, the next 1 milliseconds will be giving for the Google Meet. In that way, it may be managing. So you won't get a feeling that only one thing is happening. So that way the processor can use, actually it is an implementation for the parallel processing. Multiple things, you will be getting a feeling that multiple things are happening parallelly. And it is also make sure that the minimum response waiting time will be generating. Minimum waiting time it will be generating. So that are the major advantage of thread in operating system. In different subjects you will study in detail about thread. Actually, the process means it was completely given for the processor for doing its task. But when it comes to a thread, it was having, we will have many aspects you can tell with respect to the memory allocation, with respect to the uh, processing and all the things. I am telling only in terms of Java implementation. So the basic idea is this: if you want to implement multiple things parallelly, you can try to implement in terms of thread. Okay, so this example was showing you exactly what is happening in thread. So if multiple people are requesting for a change on a common resource database, altogether at the single point of view, you can't do the updation. So what we can do is everyone will get little time on the common resource, that is the database here, and then she has to wait little time, and then during that time maybe the first person's request will be uh, managing, and within that time she again will get the chance to execute her own request. So she is not aware that somebody else's work is also updating in the database. She's just getting a little waiting time, and at the end her things will also be finished. So that is the basic idea for the threading. So now, how can we implement it? So before going for the implementation, so for knowing for implementation, you need to study few things. Every thread will be having multiple stages. So these are the different stages: new, and then the thread will be in active stage, that may be the runnable stage. Before going to the runnable stage, it is mentioning like, okay, now the thread can work. New is just creating a thread. After that it is going to the runnable thread. It means that now it can run the action, or it can perform the action. When it is performing the action, it is in the stage of running stage, and maybe some other request the processor we needs to manage, so again it is going for the waiting or blocking stage. And once the complete process is get over for that particular task, then the running stage will be directly going to the terminated state. So when you are creating a thread new, its stage will be new, and when it is ready for the execution, it will be in the runnable stage. And when the action is performing, that time it is in the running stage. If the action completely perform, it will be directly going to the termination stage. If the action is pending but the processor is needs to go for something else, that time it will be going for sleeping or blocking stage. And again from the sleeping or blocking stage, it will be coming back to the runnable stage, and again it will be doing the work which it was left over previously. So that way it was executing the complete program, and it will be terminated. So these are the stages the thread will be having. Okay, so you can see here, when you created a little more detailed, when you create a single thread, it will be directly going into the new state, and then with which function we are changing it into a runnable state. That means it is ready for the execution. This is with respect to Java. you can call a start function. You can call a start function which indicates that your program or your thread is ready for execution. So directly from the new stage to the runnable stage, it will come through the start function. So start is a predefined function in the thread class. So you can directly use the start function which will change the state of the thread from the new state to the runnable state. Then again another function is present in the thread class. It is called as run function. So what is this run function will do? The run function will change from the runnable state to the running state. Runnable state to the running state. So what is running state? The action will be performing. So this was making the making ready the thread for the action, and when calling the run function, it will be doing the task which is called as running state. So if the running test state has finished the complete work, it will directly go to the dead state immediately. If in between, if it wants to get some more waiting time, it will be coming into the waiting stage, or you can see it is a blocking state or sleeping state by calling these functions sleep and wait. Okay. So you have to remember two things. One is the start function and another one is the run function. Okay, now how can we implement it? So I have shown you what is the use of the thread, and then I was mentioning about the states of the thread. Now, how can you implement it in the Java? So mainly the two different ways you can implement a thread in Java. One is called as extending the class thread. Thread is a predefined class. Thread is a predefined class in Java. So one possible way is you can extend the thread class, and the second way you can implement a runnable interface. So this is an interface which was present in Java. What is interface? Maybe you are not familiar, but you think like it is again like a set of class or something, and interface is actually a collection of functions which was not having any function definitions. So it was just the function declaration type. So if you want to use that interface, you have to implement it. So anyway, that part I am just leaving for you. You just study the two ways I can implement a class, implement a thread. One is extending the thread class. So what is the use of extend keyword? Extends. Did you see this keyword anywhere? It is used for the inheritance. So what we were doing is, so threads is a parent class. This was the parent class or super class. So we are trying to implement this thread class. So that is the one way, that is directly to your class you are in inheriting this thread class, that is the parent by default class. And the second way is implementing the runnable interface. So the runnable interface you can implement, that is the second scheme. We will see how this will be performing. So the first one is extending the thread class, and the second one is implementing the runnable interface. So how this will be happening? You just read the statements. We have a class, and that class must be extend java.language.thread class. So the class, whatever be your class, that should extend the thread class. Then we override the run method, the method which is the entry point for the thread. To call the run method, we first create an object of the class, then we call the start method. The start method invokes the run method automatically on the thread object that is created. So what you understood from this statement? You can just create a class in the normal way. So I am just creating a class. You just write it as a class demo. This much I know. You also know. So this is my class. So it is asking you must extend this particular class. So that is the first statement is telling. So it means that my class should extend someone, that is thread class. So I am doing that. Extends thread and T is a capital letter. Okay. So that is the class I am extending. Then you have to override the run method. That means a run method is present inside the thread class. So what is you required and that you have to write it over here. That is what it was mentioning. So it is a void run is the function which was already present in the thread class, which was already present in the thread class, because whatever the functions and member variables present in the parent class will be available in the child class. According to that particular rule, the run function will also be available here. So if what I want in the run function, that details with respect to this particular thread, what is the action should perform, that I can write in the run function of this particular thread. So it means that whatever will be the content of the run function, that will be the action of this particular thread. So when we were looking into the question number B, 3B, we have seen the three threads you have to create. The first thread should generate a random number, second thread should generate the square of the random number, and third thread should generate the cube of the random number. So the run function of the first thread, you have to write the code for generating a random number. The run function of the second thread, you have to generate the code for finding the square of the random number. And the run function of the third thread, you have to write the code for the to calculate the cube of the random number. So the run function will decide what is the action each thread should perform. So that is one point was mentioning run function. Then it was telling the method is the entry point for the thread. Okay, we already seen that when the run function is executing, that time actually the my thread will be in the running stage. Then to call the run function directly, we are not calling the run function. This is what it was mentioning. What is the thing we are knowing? So you refer the slide stage. So this is the run function. For coming into the run function, what is the thing? When you create a thread, actually it is coming into the new stage. Directly you can't call this run function. Instead of that, you have to call the start function. Then it will be in the runnable stage. Then it will automatically call the run function. That is what it was telling. So you are not calling the object run method directly. What we are doing, we first create an object of the class, and so I have to create in the main. Inside the main, here I am having main also. I'm writing here my main function is also present. Inside my main, what should I do? Inside my main, I have to create an object of this particular class. So I'm writing here, the main function is also present inside this class. So inside the main, what should I do? I should create an object of the class. What is the class I am having? Demo. So I should create an object. Object is equal to new demo. This is the object I am creating. And with that, I can call which function? I can call the start method, because the start method will, so when I am writing this, actually I am creating a thread object because the demo class is already extending the thread class. So the demo object will also be a thread. So I can call the start function over here. So it indicates that my object O1 is starting. Object O1 itself is a thread because it inherited the thread class. So O1 dot start will call. So what will happen? The start invokes the run method automatically. So when I am calling this function, automatically it will go to the runnable stage and it will call the run function by default. Automatically the control will go to the run function and the action what we have written inside the run function will be executing. So this is what the first method. So the example will give you the clear idea. Look into it. Okay, we'll see what is happening here. Okay, class multi-threading is the class name which extends thread. So that is the first thing it is asking you to do. Class multi-threading, that is the class you have defined. First thing is the extension of thread class. So we are extending the thread class. Then you know that thread class will be having a run function, that is public void run, that is by default is coming from the thread function. So it is there. And you can see the thread will be usually generating exceptions. So mostly the statements we will be writing inside the catch block, try catch block. You can see the try statement inside that it was asking system.out.println the current thread is. So the current thread value will be printing, which is the current thread. Thread.current thread.get name. So thread is a predefined class. It was having a function called current thread dot get name is another function. So what will happen? The current thread object details will be printing over here. This is just for your understanding. If the thread is not generated, the try block will be generating an exception. So that exception will be printing over here. The print stack trace will be the stack trace value, that is the log value will be printing over here. Then, so that is, you just do understand that the run function will be there. So what is the action you are writing inside this run function will be the content of your one particular thread. So what is this multi-threading thread will be doing? It is just printing the name of the current thread. Now another class has written, that is a normal class. So this is completely my thread. My first thread is this particular one. What is it doing? It extends the thread class and it has overwritten the run function. So run function was coming directly from the thread class. So whatever be the content of this run function will be the working of my first thread. Now I have to activate this thread. The thread name is multi-threading class 1. For that I am having the main function which was written in another class. You can see here public class multi-thread. Inside that what we have written, you can see here inside the main, what should I do? I should create an object of the class. So what is the class name? Int n is equal to 10, just one integer value I have written. So for 10 times 10 objects I am creating. So you can see multi-threading, the object will be creating, that was the previous class name. This is multi-thread and that class name was multi-threading. So multi-threading, the object name is equal to new multi-threading. This will be creating the object and you have to call the run method. For calling the run method, first it should start the thread. So you will be calling mlt.start. So the object.start function will be calling. So what is it doing? If we are calling this function, automatically the start function will automatically execute the run function which was present in this particular object. That is of type multi-thread. So you will be get to know that the value which you have executed over here. So that value is the run function which was written over here. This run function will be executing. Okay. So that's all about the first function. You can see here. You just go through this. What is happening here? The class name is multi-thread. What all are the things we have done? Once again, I will tell, this is very, very important with respect to your OOC subject also, for later for the placement also. So please make sure that all of you are getting this point. Class multi-thread extends thread. So what we will be doing, that is the first scheme for making a thread. We are extending the thread. Then we are having the run function. So the action which we are writing in the run function will be the working of that particular thread. And inside the main, we are creating the object of this class and calling the start function, so that directly the control will go to the run function. Even if you are calling start, the start function will automatically call the run function which was present in that particular thread. Are you clear?
Why are you creating 10 instances of the same object?
Why I am creating?
10 instances of the same object. I want it to override every.
Why I am creating inside the what is inside?
The statement multi-threading NLT.
Multi-threading array. This one.
Yeah, like overwriting all reference every time.
See, this one you are telling the run function why I am overwriting.
No, ma'am. This one. New multi-threading.
In
Like it.
multi-threading, which part I didn't hear
Yes,
you
ma'am.
properly? The here
Yes.
I didn't get the question.
Like, ma'am, we have 10 times it will execute, right, ma'am?
That was just simply 10 threads will be generating. You are asking me why you put this for loop. Is it that question? Is it your question?
Yes, ma'am. But also like ML, with, every time when we create an object of type multi-threading, it's only going to be stored at MLT.
Actually, what is the use of this for loop is it wants to create 10 thread of similar type. So it was trying to create 10 thread and each thread will be calling the start function. So parallelly 10 threads will be executing. That is the use of this one. If you didn't write this for loop, only one thread will be creating. Here, actually, inside the for loop means 10 thread at the similar same time will be executing and that will be displaying the value. We'll see what will be the output of this. You can see here. You see 10 threads will be executing. The current thread is thread number 1, 2, 0, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It should, if I am running it in the second time, it may be giving some other order, but only one thing I can guarantee is 10 thread will be generating. The thread ID number will be different. That is a unique number. So when we were asking for getting the name of the thread, you can see thread dot current thread dot get name. That was the action we were doing inside the run function. So just printing what is the thread number. That was the current thread is the statement we have written. Then the thread number will be printing. So that is the action this particular thread will be doing. Here we have generated 10 particular thread. So in each iteration, one thread will be generating, one particular thread will be generating. Its ID number is a unique value. That particular ID number will be displayed. Okay. So this is the first example. Then the second category, as I mentioned you, it will be using the runnable interface. So what is the interface thing we can use it? So the first difference between the between the thread and runnable interface is here the syntax itself is different. The thread was a class and runnable was an interface. So if your class, that is the multi-threading is your class name. So if you want that interface details, and runnable is also a predefined interface, so you can directly implement that interface. So the keyword instead of extends, it is interface. Extends will be applicable only if the second value what you are mentioning is the super class. So here it is not a class, it is an interface. So runnable is an interface. So what is the syntax we are using? Implements runnable. So that will be making sure that whatever the function declaration you are having in the runnable interface is available in the multi-threading. And you have to rewrite everything also. So runnable interface is having a function called run that will directly coming over here. You have to rewrite it. So public void run, that is again a runnable interface is also having the run method. That is this is the second scheme I am discussing about the thread implementation. The runnable interface is implementing, that is the first point, and also the runnable interface is having a function called run, so I am writing the run function. The details the same what we were having in the previous one, so same detail has written over here. The thread number will be printing, that is the only action is performing inside the run function. And now coming into the other part, that is in the previous case we have created just an object of the multi-threading. Here what should I do? Here, this is still now it is not a thread because I implemented a runnable interface and it is not a thread. If it should be a thread, what is the syntax I should make? Thread is a predefined class. So what I can do, I can directly create an object of the thread class. Thread T is equal to new thread. Inside the thread, I have to write an object of this class which was implemented the runnable interface. So I should create an object of the multi-threading class. So how can I create the object of the multi-threading class? That is new multi-threading, which will create an object of the multi-threading class that should be acting as a parameter for the thread class. So thread T is equal to new thread. Inside that, you have to add the object of this multi-threading class. So it means that this thread T is connected with the run function which was written inside the multi-threading class. Then T dot start means which start function will be executing. The thread T is a thread object because it is a thread object directly. So checking T is connected to which of the run function. The run function is defined in this particular object, that is new multi-threading. So it will be going into the multi-threading class and checking the run function, that is this particular run function, and that will be executing. So this is another way for creating the thread. So what all are the things we have done? We have created a class which instead of extends thread if I am writing means automatically its object itself will be a thread object because the thread is the parent class. The previous example, why we didn't create a thread object separately, because the multi-threading object is already extending the thread class. So the object of the multi-threading itself will have the thread object. That means the multi-threading object itself will be acting as a thread because it is already extended the thread class. So that's why directly I can call the start method and immediately the control will go to the run function. But in this case, I didn't have any thread object till now. I was just implemented another interface called runnable and it was having a run function that is there. So I have override means I have rewritten the code. That is the meaning. The run function was already there, but based on my requirement, I have written the code for run function here. Then, but till now it is not a thread object. So for making the thread object, I can follow the syntax. Thread, I know that it is a predefined class. Thread T is equal to new thread, and I don't know which is the run function should execute. So here I am adding the object of this class because the run function is defined over this particular class. So I can create an object multi-threading. Its object I am again writing as O1 is equal to new multi-threading. So this is the object I am having. So this object I have to put over here. This object I have to put over here. So it means that O1 object I have to write over here. So it indicates that if this thread T is connected to O1 and O1 is the object of the multi-threading class, so that I can call T dot start. So what is it doing? The T dot start will be calling calling the run function which was associated with this O1 object. O1 is the object of multi-threading, so the control will come to this run function. Are you clear? The first scheme, are you clear? Thread extension. This one. Okay, then ask me what is your doubt. Tell me what is your doubt. Tell me what is your doubt. What about other people? Only 2 people have responded. Okay, then second one. No. Second one, I have to explain it again. Is it the thing you are telling, Sachi? Okay. So I will write it separately. So I have to write a class. So normal class I am writing class. Same example I am writing demo. So this is the normal class I am having. Okay. So it is asking me to implement the thread using the second category. So what I can do is, first way is I can just extend the thread. So that is not possible here. That is, I am discussing about the second category because the first category is already explained you. So the second category is you can implement any interface. So the interface name is also mentioned. It is called as runnable interface. So the runnable interface is the interface. Interface is just like a C. For example, any interface, you can write your own interface also. The runnable interface is a predefined interface. So the interface was having a function called run. That is why we are using this function interface for making the thread. So runnable interface is a predefined interface. It was having a run function. So I can use this run function for making my thread. That is why I am using this by default runnable interface. So interface will be just a collection of functions. For example, S1. Like this, multiple function names will be there, function names as well as the declaration, but the contents won't be there. The contents won't be there. It is just a collection of certain function names. So what you want to use, if you want to use this interface, you can use the syntax implements. Into your class, if you want to use it, you can use the syntax class demo, that is your class, implements, which interface name you have to mention. So the interface name is runnable. So interface is just a collection of certain functions. So if you write this statement, if the interface is having multiple function, all the function you have to redefine here inside your class demo. But this runnable interface is having only one single function. So you are rewriting that one single function, that is run function, in your demo class. So if you added this statement implements runnable, what is it indicates? What all are the functions which was mentioned in the runnable interface you have to rewrite in the demo class, in the class in which you have implemented that interface. So the runnable interface is having one function called as run function. So what you need to do? You have to redefine this run function in the demo class. So that action I am doing it. I am doing it is like a public void, that was the syntax. By default it was like that, public void run, and inside that what is the action needed for this particular thread, action of thread will be writing over here. Okay. Next, I am writing my public static void main. Okay, remaining you write string, whatever are the things are there. So inside that, what should I do? Inside that, I have to, I know that I have to call this run method. So I should create an object of this run demo class. So first I am doing that. Demo object name, class name, object name is equal to new class name, that is demo. There. So my object is created. And also I know that run is a function of demo class. So I can call o1.run. That is a normal scenario for every function call with respect to the object. I can call this. This is just a class and its object. Till now it won't able to work like a thread. If it wants to work like a thread, actually we are not calling the run function. We are just starting the thread by calling the start function. Because when we are looking into the previous stages of the thread, we have seen like whenever you created a thread, it is directly going into the start new state. Then you have to call the start function, automatically it will call the run function. So this is not the way, this is just a single function. This is just a one single function I have added in the run in the demo class and I called it. This won't work like a thread. So what I should do, I should make it as a thread. How can I make it as a thread? I can make it as a thread by just creating an object of the thread class. Thread is also a predefined class. So thread is also a predefined class. That's why we have just extend the thread class in the previous example, in the previous case. So I can make this class demo as a thread. How? First I should create an object of the thread class. So thread object name I am writing as T1 is equal to new thread. So this will be acting as a thread class. Because now T1 is a thread because it is directly created an object of the thread class. So it can work as a thread. So I can call T1.start. When I am calling this T1.start, I don't know, my thread T1 don't know what action it should do because it is not associated with any of the run function. The by default what is there in the thread class run function will execute if this is the case. But my action was written over here. So what can I do is I can connect the object of my demo class with this thread. How? This object name what I have created for this demo class, I can put as one of the parameter of my thread constructor. So what I can do, the O1 object I can write as one of the parameter of the thread constructor. So automatically T1 will be generating a thread which will be accepting O1 as one object, and O1 is already an object of the demo class which was having the run function, and there we have written what is the action we need to perform. So when we call T1.start, it will check T1 is associated with any run function. Yes, T1 is associated with O1 and O1 is associated with a run function which was already rewritten or overwritten by the demo class. So those action will be executing. This is the way, the second strategy for making a thread. Are you clear? Or if you are not clear, tell me what is wrong, where you are not understanding. Only Sachin is understanding. 2, 3.
Ma'am,
Mm.
so basically, when we create a when we call a function using normal method like oven.run, it is going
Mm.
to execute simultaneously. But when we create a thread, it is like going to tell that you are going to execute at some point in future. Is it right,
See,
ma'am?
yes, exactly. So thread will be having different other aspects also, like when I was mentioning about the memory allocation. So until or unless we will be, if we are just writing like oven.run, we will be allocating the different memory allocation for different object. But when we are having the oven.run, if you are writing multiple times also, the same memory location will be overwriting. But when it comes for the thread, where it will be allocating the different memory location for every thread and it will parallelly executing. So that's why we have to make it as a thread and then you have to call the corresponding start method to execute the run function. Okay, so these are the two parts we were having. The same thing has implemented over here also. You can see same thing only has written over here. Instead of writing separately, they have created the object inside that itself. New multi-threading has created an object that was the oven in my example. So that was written inside the statement itself, but the thread object was created over here and the parameter was passing over here. Then t dot start was calling, so it will directly go to the run function over here. Okay, here. What about other people? Whether they are not listening or what is it? 4 5 people have responded. Okay, fine. That's all about today's program. We will see what is as written in the code. What is it? Multi-threading. So you see the code. So what all are the things my thread should do? My first thread should execute. My first thread should generate a random number. That was the first thing. So we'll see what is it has written. So my first thread I am creating by the first class. Class first extends thread. So it was the first strategy. Directly extends thread. So what should I do? I have to rewrite my void run function. So inside that, my first thread, the question is asking you to generate a random number. So I have to write the code inside the run function. I have to write the code for generating a random number. So the random number will be generated by a class called random, which was also present in the utility package, I think. Yes, it is present in the utility package. You just check it where it is present. So random is a predefined class. So we can just create an object of it. And then r dot next int 10. It was just mentioning like it is generating an random integer within the range 10. So it is generating a random integer. This is the object I have created. R dot next int will generate a random integer in the range of 0 to 10. So that value will be generating over here. And you can see for I equal to 1 I less than 3 I plus plus. This is for 3 random number will be generating. So this is for 3 random number will be generating. That value you can keep it any value. For as of now, if I am just keeping 1, means only one random number will be generating. So first thread is generated. So that are the statements I am writing inside my run function. One random number should generate. So random number is generated. After that, it is just generating one single statement. So what is the next statement? So random number will be generated and it is available in num variable. So that is the action my first thread should do. Now that value I am transferring to my second thread. What is my second thread? You can see the second thread should calculate the square of the random number, and thread should calculate the cube of the random number. So I have to give this value to that particular thread. So my second thread object will be creating over here, you can see, and the third thread object will be creating over here. So what I am doing is creating, we'll go to the second thread first, what is there in the second thread. So this is my second thread class. You can see class second implements runnable. This is a second strategy. You can use thread also, whichever way you are convenient, you can write it. It is not mandatory that you have to write only using whatever the code I have written. Instead of implements runnable, you can write extends thread also. So whichever the way you want to, you are comfortable for making a thread, that way you can write the code. So class second implements runnable. Inside that, it was having a constructor. You can see the second is the same name of the class. So with x value, it is assigning the x value which is coming. That what will be that x value? That is the random number we are passing from the main function, from the first thread. So first thread has generated the random number. It will be coming into this second constructor, and it is assigning over here. And as you know, it implements the runnable interface. We have to write the run function. That will be the action of the second thread should execute. So what is the run function will be doing? Finding the square of the number. So the second thread is finding the square of the number x square. You can see here, this was written inside the run function. This was written inside the run function. Okay, that is the second thread. And similarly, the third thread should also calculate the cube of the number. So what is the third thread is doing? Class third implements runnable. Again, the third thread also should accept the integer value which was generated by the first thread, the random integer. And then it is running inside the run function. So this much will be the second thread. So it will be having third thread. It was having a run function. Inside the run function, it should calculate what is x cube, because the cube should calculate. Okay, so that are the content of the second class and third class. So which are the thread. And now I have to call those threads. As you know, those threads are implementing the runnable interface. That was the second strategy. So for that, what we need to do, we have to create the thread class object first. So that is what we are doing over here. You can see thread T2 new thread. Inside that, the second class object will be transferring new second, and the second is the constructor, and it also required the parameter to which values square it need to calculate. That is the random number generated over here. So the num will be transferring. New second is the constructor. Here will be creating the object of the second class. So that T2 dot start will be calling, it is connected to the object of the second class, so that the second class run function will be executing. Second class run function is finding the square of the number. So when we are creating the object itself, it is calling the second class constructor, that is accepting an integer value. So x will be accepting the number value we have transferred from the first thread. So the number is the random number generated. Okay, so T2 dot start will be creating the second thread. So it will be connected to the run function of the second thread. Similarly, we are the third class or the third thread is also implements the runnable. So to make it as a thread, we are creating a thread object, and then inside that we are passing to which class it should connect. That is the third class. So the third class object will be creating. Now that will be acting as T3 will be acting as a thread which was connected to the third class run function. So T3 dot start will be calling the run function of the third class, that is printing the cube of the number. Okay. So after that you can just see thread dot sleep. So if multiple values, this is only for one single integer, this is not required. If multiple values are printing, you can see if this statement is not there also, if 0 to 1, only one integer value is there, no need of sleep operation. If multiple values are existing, that means 3 random number is generating, and or 4 random number will be generating based on what is the condition we are giving for this for loop. That many number of random number will be generating. So those random numbers will go to the corresponding thread and it will find out the square as well as cube. So for that, in between making the random number, it is just sleeping for 1000 millisecond. That is also asking in the question. You can just wait 1 minute gap between every time you are generating the random number. So this is for the first thread sleeping. So entire statement has written inside the try block because it is called sleep function. By default is asking a try block because sometimes if some exception may occur for the sleep function. So that mandatorily you have to write inside the try block. So as you know, after the try block immediately you will be having a catch block. So if any exception has there, that exception will also be catch over here, and that is the end of the first class. Now till now I didn't call the first class object because directly I was coming into the first thread because it was extending the thread object. So by default first is a thread because it extended the thread class. So directly I can create an object of the first and directly I can call the start function. So immediately the control will go to the run. That was the first scheme. So that was added over here in the one more class we have written, that is multi-thread. Inside that what I did, first a new first. So what is doing? A is a class which was written for the thread class, which was extending the thread class. So automatically A is a thread. So you can directly write A dot start. So from this example itself, you will get to know why I have included both these. You will get to know the difference between both the schemes. And I felt the first scheme is more easier than other two schemes. So you can always try for the first scheme for the implementation in the lab aspects. Okay. So here you can see the first A that by default it was extending the thread class. So automatically it is a thread. So no need of creating another thread object. When we are creating an object of the first class, that itself will be a thread. Directly you can call the start function. Otherwise, if we are implementing the runnable interface, in the case of second thread as well as the third thread, you have to create the thread object first and then you have to pass the object of the class what you are having implemented the runnable interface, and then you have to call this thread what you have created. So that is little more hectic. So if you are directly extending the thread class, it is very easy. Normally you create an object of the class, call the start function. Okay, we'll run this. Okay, you can see the first thread generated the number is 0, and the second thread find out its square, that is again 0, and the third thread find out the cube is also 0. Then the second random number, we have written the code for 3 random numbers. So the first thread generated the random number is 2. Then the second thread find out the square of it, that is 4. And the third thread find out the cube of it, that is 8. Then the third random number is generated, that is for first thread generated the random number is 9, and the second thread generated the square of it, that is 81, and the third thread generated the cube of it, that is 729. Okay, 729 will be the cube of the 9. So this way you can do that program. Any doubt related to this program? This is slightly complicated. I think I have given you the explanation. If you listen the complete class, maybe you will get to know this. Otherwise, I don't know. Anyway, the video recordings I will upload in the playlist of YouTube so that you can refer it even if you didn't listen this properly. This is very, very important with respect to your placement also. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Next lab, you will be having a Viva session separately. and you, try to be ready for attending a quiz. Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. Okay, answer your attendance. Answer your attendance. 123,
Present, ma'am.
124,
Present, ma'am.
125,
Present, ma'am.
126,
Present, ma'am.
127,
Present, ma'am.
128,
Present, ma'am.
129,
Ma'am.
130,
Present, ma'am.
131,
Present, ma'am.
132,
Present, ma'am.
134,
Present, ma'am.
135, 135, 135 absent, 136,
Present, ma'am.
137,
Present, ma'am.
138,
138 present, ma'am.
139,
Present, ma'am.
140. Where is this 140 to 144? Usually their attendance will be 140 absent. 141, 142. Last lab also they didn't attend. 143.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, 144.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Is it any of this number present? 135, 140, 141, 142. How is this lab going on? Do you want to add anything so that I can make it little more easy for you? Any suggestions? Any suggestions? Hello? Is it going good? One 135. Shashwat Pandey. What happened? Is it any reason? Shashwat Pandey. Again, it has some issues. Okay, according to the rule, I have just raised the issue in the ERP team. It is from 4 students' details. It is not there, 140 to 144. Instead of that, some other students' details they have added. I have raised the issue. They will solve it. I will note it down your USN and attendance things. Okay. Is it they are attending anywhere else? 140, 141 and 142? Any other batches? Okay. Okay, yeah, actually, according to the list, it is like 140 to 144. 123 to 144 is batch 1. So all of you can attend C1 session. Okay. No issue.
Last time I was present, ma'am, but my name is not here.
Yeah, now also I have raised the issue to the ERP team last week itself, last Saturday. So we'll see. They maybe today they will solve it. Okay, don't worry about that. Anything else? Okay then. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. Take care. I will post the question. You can submit it, the answer on 1 week time. I will give you.
Ma'am, what
Ah.
about second assignment, second lab program?
Second lab program today is the last date.
What?
Oh, is it next week? No? Okay, fine. Last Saturday it was happened.
I
So
think
it
you
is.
did not give the second lab.
Okay, 2 weeks time for this particular program I will give. Is it fine?
No, it's like module 4 for our object-oriented class.
It is like I am not hearing you properly, Sachin. In
Ma'am, I'm
between it is.
saying it's the topic that you taught is in module 4, so it will take a lot of time to get there in theory class.
Yeah, but we can't wait till that point, Sachin. So, see, already program and logic part I have explained you. Okay. Actually, it is one full module and it needs a lot of time for actual all things if I want to tell. But whatever is required for the lab, that part I have covered. And I have shown you the code also. I think you can just make a try and within 2 weeks time you can upload the code. Okay, 2 weeks time I will give you because already anyway IAT is also coming. Okay, fine.